Um, Congratulate you, Mr. Elmendorf, for your reappointment as CBO. You've carried out your duties, I believe, with honesty and integrity, and I look forward to working with you again. You have some rather specific controls on how you score and evaluate matters. It's not your fault. They've been established, and you follow them, I think, objectively, whether we like the outcome or not. The rules are set up mostly by Congress. So we got the new baseline from CBO yesterday. The news was not good. Our deficit is expected to reach nearly $1.5 trillion this fiscal year as of September 30th. That's well above what we were projecting not long ago. Our gross debt is expected to reach 100% of GDP, meaning the amount of all the money our nation owes will soon be equal to the value of everything our nation produces. That's above the level, the 90% level that Rogoff and Reinhardt can calculate in their fine, valuable book and analysis of nations who defaulted on their debts. And the 90% rate is significant. They find is the significant number, and we're above that. 40 cents of every dollar we spend is borrowed. By the end of the decade, the interest on our debt is expected to rise to nearly $750 billion in 1 year. That crowds out people want spending. People would like to spend more on a host of projects, and I'd like to do that too, but we're going to have $750 billion less because first we've got to pay interest on the surging debt that we have. Former Federal Reserve Chairman Alan Greenspan said recently that we have almost a 50-50 chance of a bond market crisis in the next 2 years. That's the quote up there. It was apparently at the Wall Street Journal interview, and I thought that was something that we should hear. I mean, this is a man of wisdom. He's been around a long time, and he said the only question is, will this debt bond crisis be before, that the kind of budget numbers that we need be passed before or after the crisis. It'd be a lot better, I think we would all agree, critical actually, that we do it before the crisis. So the path we're on is unsustainable, yet I have to say that President Obama, in his State of the Union address, announced fundamentally we would just continue as we are. To hear the President's remarks, one would think his speech had been written 10 years ago. They were disconnected from the reality of the debt crisis that we face. Earlier this week, I said his State of the Union address would be a defining moment for his presidency, and I don't think he rose to the occasion. It was a timid speech. It squandered a historic opportunity to rally the American people behind true spending reform. He had the opportunity to look them in the eye, say what the real dangers we're facing are, and call on us to meet the challenge as Americans will, if properly called. It was far short of the standard set by Governor Chris Christie in New York and Prime Minister David Cameron in the UK and Britain, who are making tough choices. No one forced Mr. Obama to be president. As my wife says, don't blame me, you asked for the job. He asked for this job, and he's got a real tough job now, and I think he did not lead effectively. He proposed instead that we continue a 5-year plan, and this so-called freeze on domestic spending is not a plan to reduce deficits. It's a plan to preserve the deficits, really locking in place the very spending levels that have been dramatically increased by President Obama in the last 2 years. The plan is remarkable not for its strength, but for its weakness. In defense of his proposal, the President argued that the government spending is the engine of the economy, that the government is the engine of the economy, basically. And he had this airplane metaphor backwards. The engine of our economy is the private sector, not the public sector. When the private sector grows, it creates jobs, new industries, new ideas, and more tax revenue. But when the public sector grows, it simply consumes more of what the private sector produces, And big government waste is funded on the back of small business thrift. The American people deserve candor and directness from the elected officials. The money to sustain the president's big government vision, the more investments he called for, is simply not there. We don't have the money. Meaningful spending reductions are not a choice, they are an obligation. There is no serious alternative. We need to take the tougher road, but the road that leads to prosperity. Reducing the size and cost of government may not be easy, but it's the only responsible course, the only one that will lead us to a better future. So, Mr. Elmendorf, I look forward to discussing the issues with you now and as we go forward through the next years.